Hello, Southwest Florida homeowners and homebuyers. Welcome to the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, your go-to source for navigating the vibrant real estate landscape of our beautiful region. I'm your host, Kevin Tremmel, a local real estate agent, leader, and investor here in Southwest Florida. On this podcast, we bring you insights from best in the business, top-notch real estate professionals, seasoned agents, and experts in everything from homeowners insurance to mortgages, maintenance, and repairs. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or a seasoned homeowner, we've got you covered with tips, strategies, and valuable insights to make your journey in Southwest Florida's real estate market a breeze. Get ready to unlock the doors to successful home ownership. This is the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, where we demystify the process, share insider knowledge, and ensure you're well equipped to make informed decisions. Let's dive in.
All right, podcast starts now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. Today, our guest is Anica Rivera. She is a real estate agent with Keller Williams Tampa Properties in Tampa. She's also an educator and a productivity coach at Keller Williams. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Kevin. Hello. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time. Why don't we get started how we usually do on the show with all of our guests? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your real estate story? How did you get into real estate? Why did you get into real estate? How's it been?
All the things.
All the things. Yes, all the things.
I am originally from New York. I was born and raised there, and I later moved to Atlanta, Georgia when I was about 28, 29 years old. And then I actually came down to the Tampa Bay area back in 2019, 2020. But my first introduction to real estate actually came when I was in college. I was at Adelphi University, and I got my first real job adulting. I was a legal assistant to an attorney, and he was a sole practitioner, him and his brother, and their focus was wills and estates and real estate. And that became my first introduction to real estate. And so it was just us in the office. And so when you go to a closing and you get that 200-page stack of documents, that used to be me putting all of that together by myself. And so I got a really good in-depth knowledge of what the real estate transaction process looks like. Across the hall from us, there were two brothers who had an office as well, and they had a title company. And so we worked together a lot, and I got to really see the transaction from contract to close and what that looks like. And so that's one of the benefits that I bring to my business. The second reason I would say that motivated me to get into real estate, or at least start my business, was my mom. I grew up single parent household. My mom worked 6 days a week. And when I turned about 28, I decided to move to Atlanta, and she was going to come behind me. And before she could get there, I just randomly on a Saturday was driving the car with my dog and was at a red light and saw an open house sign, and I had never been to one. So I literally looked at my dog and said, Noah, do you want to go check that out? And he was like, "Ooh." And I ended up going to check out the house, and I fell in love with the house and decided to put in an offer, which is the advice you give clients is do not jump at the first thing you fall in love with, right? But I completely just disregarded that. And so the offer was accepted, and I called my mom on the phone and said, Mom, I think I just bought a house. And to her great dismay, she was like, oh, my child, what have you done? We didn't even talk about this. And I described the house to her, and it was a third of an acre. It's a corner lot, and it has the white picket fence, and it has this wraparound porch and these big magnolia trees and oak trees and all this yard. And her immediate reaction was, what do you do with all that? You grew up in an apartment building with a fire escape. Like you've never even touched a lawnmower before. And so true to my personality and the way my mother raised me, I was like, Mom, I'll figure it out. Like Home Depot has classes for stuff like that. Like I can make it work. And when she came 4 weeks later, she came to the house for the first time. And that was a pivotal moment, because I realized that at 29 years old, watching my mother stand there on the front porch, just looking around and looking at the neighborhood and how quiet it was and all the trees. It was the exact opposite of living in New York in the city. And the tears in her eyes. And I realized that all the sacrifice that she had made my entire life was worth it. It was all. And that to me was huge. Like I realized that in that moment, I had changed the trajectory of the legacy of my family. And so that to me really stuck with me. I had that property for over a decade, and I later used it as an investment property. But I've been doing real estate on my own for many years since that point forward. And so getting my real estate license and starting my own business just came to be the next natural thing, particularly after the pandemic or during COVID, when everybody kind of regrouped and reset and tried to figure out what are your real priorities and your dreams in life and things like that. And so I had worked in the legal field since college, and then I had transitioned into the education field, and I was a teacher for 20 years. And I'm a very goal-oriented person. And so I'm working on a goal every 3 to 5 years. I'm working on something, some sort of life enrichment type of goal. And I really kind of, just like everybody else during the pandemic, just kind of really taking some inventory on what are still my dreams, what are still some things on my bucket list that I haven't accomplished. And knowing that I had always done real estate, but not as a business. And so decided that I would set a goal. And so I went ahead and prepared myself and took my real estate course and got my license. And I did that I did it for a year while still working as a teacher, but did it in all my free time. And then transitioned out, had a coach, had a mentor, helped me devise a plan. We called it the exit strategy to get out of teaching.
Right.
And made it
Looks
work.
like it worked. Yeah, looks like
it worked. It worked. I have no regrets whatsoever.
yeah. A little bit more flexibility, potentially a little bit more higher pay, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like the general consensus in the world, or at least in the United States, that teachers deserve more than what they make. So
Yes,
yeah.
they do. Educators, if you think about it, teachers teach the very society that we live in. It's the one profession that creates every other profession.
Yeah.
If you think about it. So the idea that the salaries, no matter where you go in the US, the salary doesn't commensurate with that. It's a little shocking, but you definitely don't get into teaching for the paycheck. That's not what you're doing it for. It's because you're called to do it. You have the want and the desire to make an impact on people's lives.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. And I don't even have kids yet. So
you have a dog.
Exactly. And then so when you got your license, so you're with Keller Williams now. You always been with Keller Williams? That was like your first stop so far. And tell us a little bit about that, or have you switched brokerages ever?
So actually, when I first started, I got my license and I actually joined a really small boutique firm. And it was a husband and wife team, and they were great. And I had worked with them in the education field. And so they had been colleagues of mine in a prior life. And so it just seemed like a natural, great fit. And I loved their business model. I loved what they were doing. The interesting thing that we realized was that I was 6 months in, and because I had already worked in the legal field for 13 years since college, I already have a good depth of knowledge in what is the legal documents involved, closing documents. Like I understand all the legal documents that are involved in a real estate transaction. The part that the missing piece for me was the education piece. So I have no sales background. And I don't even like feeling salesy. Like I don't even like going to the car dealership because I don't like people asking me or trying. The whole sales pitch thing is so unnatural to me, and it feels so uncomfortable. But I knew that although I had an editing business when I was in legal on the side, and I was an academic coach and a tutor all the years that I was teaching, and I still have my academic coach business, I did not have the foundation or the knowledge base that I wanted as far as how to run this as a sales business. And the boutique firm was really a better fit for people who already have a clientele, who already have a pipeline, who already have a vast experience already, so they don't need much training. I needed training in something very specific. And I actually came to a team meeting here at our office. I was invited by an agent to come to a team meeting. And right then and there in that team meeting, I knew that this was going to be a great fit because of the culture here, the support, the encouragement, and the training. I mean, KW is known around the world for their education, right? So for me, coming from that space and coming from that place, this became a really great fit for me. Everybody has to figure out what works best for you, right? And the biggest hurdle is you don't know what you don't know. But when you do know what it is you're missing, then figuring out how do you get to that is going to be key. And so coming to this office particularly was a huge blessing for me. I've met some amazing agents, amazing leadership. When I came to Tampa, you and I had talked earlier, I had no sphere of influence here. My people were all in New York and my people were in Atlanta. And I came right before the pandemic. So everybody was isolated. So I couldn't make friends if I wanted to in the beginning. And so, but being in this office and having relationships and interacting with other agents has really helped me understand what I needed to do to be able to find the people that I'm here to help.
Yeah.
And so this office, this was a much better fit for me and continues to be. I joined the education committee as soon as I got here, thinking I left teaching behind, and I turned around and joined the education committee at the marketplace, right? But I joined the education committee, and that's been amazing. And being able to, and then I went ahead and I took the opportunity to become a KW instructor. And so there's a series of trainings that you go through that. So I went and did the first level and I successfully passed. And so now I'm able to actually teach courses to agents here at our office or any other offices that I'd like to. And so I'm going to keep on that trajectory. My goal is to become a KW international instructor.
Oh, cool. Well, and then I know KW, first of all, so many great points. I know KW also has like the Bold program and like they go pretty high up on the education. Like they place a lot of emphasis and value
on
the organization in that. Yeah, I know that. And then I think it's a good point that you brought up because we also have some newer agents listening or potentially also some people that are teachers or whatever it may be that want to get into real estate. With the whole brokerage thing, I think that's a great point. Different agents need different things in different stages of their career, right? I think it's not to say that boutique agency was bad. It was just maybe not the fit for a new agent that just needs a lot of hand holding. And I don't really mean that in a bad way. Maybe like a husband and wife brokerage owner team just can't give you that because they have their own business and whatever that may be. I think it's a great point. And then I want to touch on your mom's story because I feel like everybody that's passionate about real estate has something like something like that, whatever that may look like. But I want to ask, like, how did that story or that experience with your mom shape your business today? Do you see yourself doing a lot of business with, let's say, first-time home buyers or renters? Because it seems like you're very passionate about buying
my first-time home buying.
So, yeah, exactly. So I just want to like, how has that experience shaped like your business today?
It is definitely the cornerstone, I would say. It influences how I seek out every opportunity possible for first-time home buyers because I come from an education mindset. I do find that a lot of the time, the reason people don't think that they can buy is just because they don't have the information that they need available to them. And understanding that every single person and their ability to purchase a home is going to be very specific to their needs, their financial portfolio, like what their lives look like. And so to me, understanding that the impact it has when you buy your first piece of property and what that opens the door to for your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, because once one person in the family has a home, everybody in the family kind of takes a look and thinks, okay, so this is possible, right? We may have grown up as renters, generational renters, right? But that was appropriate perhaps for that generation and those circumstances. So it does not mean that you don't have the ability to purchase. And so for me, that experience, realizing that my mom had sacrificed so much and this was possible. And so I bring that to my business. And so I do work a lot with first-time home buyers. I have particular agents that particular mortgage lenders that do specialize in first-time home buyer down payment assistance programs. I'm proud to say this part. So last year in 2020, one of my buyers, my first-time home buyers, they were the largest dollar recipients of down payment assistance program funds for first-time home buyers. They received $90,000 in total of down payment assistance money. And I think they purchased a home at like maybe $250,000. So instant equity, right? And the majority of that 90,000 is on as forgivable funds.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because that's not always the case.
Right. It's not always the case. Sometimes it's a mix.
Yeah.
And it's a stackable, stack them. So they got money from the city, they got money from the state, they got money from their own bank. they got 13,000 from their actual lending. The mortgage lending bank gave them 13,000. And then there was some other grants in there. So I get very excited when I'm working with first-time home buyers because it's that goal, it's that dream. And I get to be a part of that. I get to walk them through that. I get to guide them through that. And that's, look at my face. I get super excited thinking about it, right? And it's not to say that I don't get the same excitement with sellers. My experience with sellers is different. I get to help you like close a chapter and start a brand new one. And that can be so exciting. And that transition is so exciting, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. I still remember my first time home buyer experience like it was yesterday.
Yeah. It's just two different pairs of like someone that's owned multiple homes or someone that's selling a home versus a first time home buyer. It's just like you can't compare it. Like it's just different questions that get asked and different type of like involvement and like yeah, it's interesting how it differs. On paper, it's the same thing, right? It's a real estate transaction, but it's interesting how it differs for like, what type of work you do. And yeah,
because if you're a seller, you're probably going to be buying as well. And so having somebody who has the expertise that knows how to balance that out, how to make sure that you don't end up in two contracts and one falls apart and now you're going to do what, you know what I mean? Like there is a very intricate dance that you have to make sure that you're handling for your clients to be able to sell and buy and not have to move twice, pay twice, storage, all of those things.
Yeah, 100%.
Renters, you mentioned renters, and I actually have one coming up, and I'll send you the date. You can share it with the audience, but because I come from education, right? And so I do partner with, I have a lender and a title person that we're going to be doing some home buyer success series workshops, hopefully here in Tampa. And so we'll be doing that at least once a month, as long as we can, really geared towards that. It's really geared towards having a real estate professional such as myself, a mortgage professional, and having someone who is a title professional to sit down and just do a quick overview with renters to say, this is what's available to you, this is what that process looks like, and this is how you can position yourself to be able to go out there and buy property. So
100%. Is that going to be in person or like at a venue, or is that going to be digital, like a Zoom?
Yeah, it'll be in person.
We're in person. Cool. Yeah. Send me the deets.
Like face-to-face.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's more impactful, but obviously not always possible. But yeah, that's cool.
I'll have them and I'll be doing them in 2 languages. So we're doing them in English, and then we'll also be doing them in Spanish as well for that Spanish speaking community.
You're going to be hosting both because you speak Spanish as well.
I do. I am fully bilingual. So yes, and I have lenders who are also bilingual for that purpose.
Yeah, it's important. No. It's funny, I actually had a first-time home buyer couple, husband and wife, the other day, and I don't speak Spanish, but they said, Kevin, we want to work with you because you don't, and sorry, let me back up. They're from South America, so their tongue is Spanish, but they're like, Kevin, we want to work with you because you don't speak Spanish, because it's going to push us like out of our comfort zone. It's going to be a good learning experience for us. And I was like, cool. Awesome. That's like pretty interesting. Like that's
awesome. Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, I thought
that's amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome too. But then, so you're in your career, right? Like you're out of the stage where you've like made the hump, or you've made the most agents.
I've jumped into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, but you're swimming, right? Because most agents fail 85% of agents fail within their first 1 to 2 years, right? So you're
this is not selling sunset. I know this is great, but that's not real life.
Yeah. Well, even though you have the correct background picture for selling sunset, but so you're a newer agent, but you're not so like you're swimming, right? Like I said, and I think it's important to know what you're getting at, right? It's not selling sunset. It's not the 90-second, 60-second TikTok and Instagram shorts that you see where someone cashes their check, right? Like it's a lot more. So I just want to know from you as like a little bit of a newer agent, what challenges, right? Let's focus also a little bit on the challenges. What challenges have you faced and what kind of strategies have you used to overcome the challenges? So
I would say one of the biggest challenges I faced in the beginning was this limiting belief in my head that when I was starting, I'm a new agent, who's going to want to work with me, right? And 2, I don't have a circle or a community here in the Tampa Bay area. Everybody I know for the majority of my life is in New York or is in Atlanta. So what does that mean for me here? And I really had to think about at the end of the day, I mentioned I'm not a salesperson. I don't ever want to feel like I'm a salesperson. So what am I bringing to the public? What am I bringing to people who want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? What do I have to offer? What makes me stand out? What's my superpower, right? And so what I really dug deep in on was I have 13 years of experience in the legal field that started in real estate to begin with. And then I have another 20 years as an educator. And it's not, I can honestly say I'm good at those things and I'm passionate about those things. And as an educator, I know that by default, when you have a classroom of children, no matter what age, high school was my favorite, you get 28, 29 kids that walk in on day one, and you have about 2 days to make a connection with complete strangers, get them to connect with you and buy into agreeing to do whatever it is you're asking them to do, and to be able to work, to take in knowledge and be able to apply it. You have to develop a relationship, and you have to also be able to teach the information in multiple different ways, because everybody learns differently and everybody's coming with their own experience of learning. And so being able to teach the same material 3 different ways to 3 different people, that's a skill that not everybody has. And so I realized that I have enough to help people be able to buy real estate, to be able to sell real estate, to be able to do whatever it is they want to do in real estate. I have the skills that's needed to do that. It doesn't matter whether I've done it in the sales field or not. I'm just using that skill set on a different playing field. I'm
Yeah.
just platform. I'm now doing the same exact thing, but I'm doing it for people who want to buy real estate. So that really became changing that mindset to say, I'm not limited. I actually have a skill set that's worth its weight, and I can make a difference in people's lives, and I can guide people through this process successfully with all of the background that I have and the experience. And personally, because I mentioned I've had real estate. I had that one property, my first property. Oh my goodness. I rented that property for over 10 years, had different renters. I went through everything. The crash of 2008, I was upside down on that house by, oh my God, I can't begin to tell you how I lost it. I had renters who took care of my house like it was their own and it was immaculate. And I had a renter who I had to gut the kitchen down to the floorboards because she had destroyed it so badly. I had refinanced the house when I knew nothing about really refinancing at age 30. And so I've run the gamut. I've short sold properties. Like, I've got so much experience that I can leverage to say, I get it.
Yeah.
And here are some options. Here are some different strategies that you can use. That's kind of what shaped my business.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Challenge turned leverage.
Yeah, that's a good answer. It's not generic answer. It's a true answer. So I appreciate that. And I mean, a couple things. Well, number one, as we know, selling it's 80% mental, right? And how do you get yourself to that 80% mental for the sales job is belief in the product and belief in what you're selling. And through your experience with your mom and your investment and home ownership and generational wealth and like all that journey, you have the belief to be at that 80% mental, right? And then the other 20% is skill set, which everybody can learn. You don't have to be a genius. We're not sending people to Mars. And so I think that's important to remember. And then also that real estate, like taking a transaction from getting a lead to handing over keys, there's a lot more involved than sales. And it sounds like once you're under contract, and even before, once you negotiate, and then it's mostly law. Like it's a lot of like deadlines, law, what happens if and when and this and that. And you had all that, right? So I think from the outside looking in, I think you were a lot closer to being like a solid agent than you thought you probably were, because you had all those skill sets. So that's a good
beliefs.
Yeah.
Limiting beliefs. You gotta put them around.
Got to get rid of them. Yeah. And let's switch gears a little bit. Let's kind of talk about the market a little bit. You working with a lot of first-time home buyers.
It's coming. I know it's coming.
Not all of them are going to have 400 grand paying cash for a house, or even 20% or even 10% down. So I guess what kind of trends are you, first of all, seeing like in your Tampa real estate market right now?
So I would say that what comes to my mind when you talk about trends is I would think about two things. One, I can definitely tell you that in the last, I would say from July to now, July to September, June, July, August, buyers are really holding the line on what they're willing to pay. They are holding the line. They are not entertaining anything that is outside of what they perceive is their top number. I could say that before this, I specialize a lot of my business, my lead gen is open houses. It's my classroom, right? I never really left teaching. And so I used to see a lot of buyers who would come through and they are taking advantage of open houses, whether or not the house that they walk into really hits the majority of their check boxes. It didn't have as much priority. They really just wanted to be out and looking,
Starting, doing
kind of
so.
window shopping, you know. And what I am seeing over the last 4 or 5 months is I'm not seeing a lot of that. I'm not seeing a lot of traffic coming through the open houses with that in mind, with that kind of mindset. They are really being much more intentional and purposeful in what they're actually going to look at. So what does that mean? What does that translate to? It means sellers need to be really more, they need to be more intentional about where they're pricing property, because the unicorn year is gone. That's not coming back. And if an agent tells you, I think your house right now on market is going to be between this range and this range, it matters where you price your house in that range, right? Because if you price it at the higher end of the range, you got a lot of buyers who are not even going to come look at it, even though it's the starting point of a conversation, right? A list price is just the starting point of a conversation to get started, right? But they're not even willing to come talk to you if they feel like it's too high. And so that's a trend that I'm seeing. The other trend I would say is the obvious one, which is the one I thought you were going to ask me about, the new rules on the National Association of Realtors, August 17th being such the big day. And it's got a lot of agents freaked out. So I don't know how many agents will leave the business because they're freaked out about it. I actually am not at all bothered by it. I actually like it for some of the extra additional regulations that have been put into place, but it's always been the commission rate, as we know, it's always been negotiable. It's just everybody just kind of fell into this standard operating procedure type of mode. But I feel like it's now empowered both sides to have a conversation. And to me, it's just the other thing that we need to negotiate if we need to negotiate it. It's just another negotiation point. It's not earth shattering. It behooves the sellers to assist the buyers with the buyer's agent commission. It makes sense for the buyers to understand that you have hired and you're working with an agent, and it's a professional, no different than the doctor, the dentist, the lawyer. Unfortunately, it's the kind of profession that we don't get paid for our services until the end, but it's still a person who is doing a ton of work before they actually even get paid, right? And in many cases, us as agents, we put out money for photography, for staging, for whatever, open houses and all of that, on the idea that everybody's going to work together to get to the same outcome, to get to the closing table. But I would say that those are the two big trends: is buyers are holding the line and they're being really intentional about what they're willing to even go see. And the new rules on transparency of commission. My favorite is buyers now have to commit, even for the day, even for the one property, they have to commit to being in a contract agreement with the buyer's agent. It's there to protect both of us. It's there to protect the agent and protect the buyer out in the public. So it's a positive thing.
Yeah, and two things on that note. Yeah, the whole price thing with the range, and that's a good point, because I'm sure you get that asked often too with listing presentations. Why can't we just price it at X? If someone really likes it, they can just make an offer, right? That's always the standard thing, right? We're going to be flexible. As the seller speaking, we're going to be flexible on the price, but we want to start here. Somebody can just make an offer. And like you said, now that inventory is up and there's still a lot more competition, put yourself in the shoes of a buyer, right? They have maybe, and I'm just using like example numbers, 2 years, they have 15 homes to choose from. Today, they have 55 to choose, and they're all going to be roughly the same, let's say it. Or why would they look at a home that's 20 grand over what the others are? Like, no photography in the world, no marketing in the world is going to change that, right? So and that's the conversation I'm having with all my sellers. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Somebody can always make an offer and I can put that in the MLS, but like if a client sorts their criteria on Zillow and like there's another 3 bedroom, 1,500 square feet with for 30 grand less, like they're not even going to look at yours because they have so much to choose from. And like you said, they're going to be a lot more intentional today than they were 2 years ago. So 100% agree.
You don't want to be in a position where you're helping to sell other properties.
Yeah, exactly.
Be mindful of what's going on in your area, in your specific neighborhood, even what is actively on market. What are the buyers seeing, right? So put yourself in the position of the buyer. And me as an agent, I do that as well. I'll run a market analysis, but part of that is to share with the seller to say, look, when buyers are going on Zillow, this is what they're seeing, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you put yourself in their shoes. So depending on where we price it matters because you want to be on their radar. You want to look as an attractive option for them because you have to get out of the I'm the homeowner, the seller mindset. You really do need to put yourself in the buyer mindset.
Yeah.
And as an agent, sharing that with them to say, we don't want to sell the neighbor's house because we're at the same price or we're 10, 20,000 over and we can't justify that.
Yeah. And I feel like another misconception or maybe even like an error from some agents and a misconception from sellers, this house in my neighborhood is listed for this much and that's why mine should be listed at this. Well, just because something's listed at
That's what they're closed at.
XYZ doesn't mean that buyers think it's worth XYZ. So if you have something that's listed for XYZ and it's been on the market for 120 days, I mean,
the market is
everything. Yeah, that should tell you.
Telling you,
Yeah,
they're answering. They're giving you the rebuttal, right?
Yeah.
And exactly. How long has, because you get that a lot. And it's not to say homeowners can't help but to be aware of what their neighbors' houses are selling for, right? We get that. However, by the same token, it's how long your neighbor's house may have sold at this price, right? But what was the original price? How many reductions did they have? How long were they on market? And when a seller says, I want to list it at this price, or I want to start at the higher end of range, I'm not in a rush. Okay. So while I understand you're not in a rush, time on market does not really work in your favor. And so understanding that while you say you're not in a rush, are you okay? That house has been on the market for 55 days and they've had 2 reductions. Are you okay with being on market for like 55 days, let's say? How are you going to feel at a month and a half, almost 2 months of being on market and nothing, you're not under contract?
The data shows that pricing it high, like it'll lead to a lower sales price. Like for example, I'm just using random numbers here. You listed at 500, which is on the higher end of the market. You're going to have, or to sell it, you're going to have multiple price decreases in addition to like a lot of days on market. So you might sell that house for, call it 430, or hey, we could list it today at 465 and sell it in 30 days. Like, which one would you rather have, 460 in 30 days or 430 in 100 days, right? Because that's what the data shows.
It also comes back to when we do these listing consultations and the buyer consultation, like I really do love those consultations because I guess it's the educator again in me is I need to understand deeply what is your motivation? Why are you selling? What difference does that make? And really ask you, like, I'm trying to go several layers deep on my questioning because when we're 7 days in or 14 days in and I'm talking to you about we need to pivot. We don't want to be chasing the market either. I can go back to your motivation was you want to be closer to the grandkids. So let's talk about that. The longer we're on market, the longer it takes to get to where you're trying to go. And what does life look like for you with the grandkids, right? Right now, you're having to commute from here to Zephyr Hills to see the kids or whatever the case is, but as opposed to you being right around the corner, right? So what value does time have, right?
Yeah.
What price you put on that time that you are spending here when you could be over there?
Yeah, 100%. And
Understanding what is your motivation, like what is driving the move, and how long do you want to wait before you get to where you want to be?
yeah, and do you absolutely have to sell this home? Because and then I think you just got to be honest with them in this market. Like if somebody when you ask those questions and someone says, hey, you say, hey, why are you selling? Why do you want to sell? And they give you something like, we just want to see what we can get. I mean, right now is not the time to see what you can get, right? Then maybe you just have to be realistic and it's like, hey, this is how much you can get. And if like now is not the time to stretch the market, right? But like,
and the trend definitely shows that we're longer days on market. I could tell you in Hillsborough County, month over month for the last 12 months, the houses on average have sold for less than what they listed at. And as we're moving, do we have 4 months of inventory? Yeah. And at 5 and 6 months, we're at a balanced market. So the sellers also want to be competitive. You want to make sure that because you're going to be a buyer too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
you're a seller now, but you're going to be a buyer. So
yeah. And I have that conversation a lot with my clients, my seller clients right now, that they do have to sell, whether it be jobs, kids, health, whatever. And they're not getting what they had in mind for their house. But I tell them, you're going to be a buyer after this house sells. So like, it's going to be a wash at the end of the day. Okay. You're going to get like less for your house today. Okay. It sucks. Everybody's in the same boat, but you're also going to get a better deal. If you have a good agent, you're also going to get a better deal on the buying side, or you could wait a year. And yes, will you maybe, I mean, nobody has a crystal ball. Will you maybe get more for your house when rates are down as they should be about in a couple hours? But will you get more for your house? Yeah, I mean, potentially, but will you also pay more for your next house? Like, are you considering that? And then that's usually like where the light bulbs go off. Like, you want to buy new construction and get a interest rate buy down on the builder. You want to get your closing costs paid. You want to get a price, like, then now's the time. Like, and so, right, it's going to be like a wash.
And trying to remind our clients that what happens in the market doesn't just happen for you. It happens for everybody.
Yeah.
So when interest rates come down, it goes down for everybody, which means prices go up on the houses because now there's more buyers out there. So the demand is higher. And unfortunately, everybody else is getting the lower interest rate too. So now you have more buyer competition, which means you could definitely run into multiple offer scenarios. Yeah. So one of the things that I've learned in the past couple of years in this industry is that confirmation that life itself is always what's going to motivate people to buy, sell, and invest. It doesn't matter what the interest rates are. It doesn't matter what the home pricing is. It doesn't matter what the gas prices are. Like, life demands is what keeps this industry going. When you get a job opportunity to relocate to Florida and you're living in Oregon, it doesn't really matter what's going on with the interest rates. You're going to find what is the right fit for you, and it's all going to work out, but you're still going to buy, you know what I mean? And whatever it is, whether it's relocation from job, whether it's a parent who needs to be closer to their kids because they're aging, whether it's the last kid just went off to college and we're sitting on a 5-bedroom house, we need to downsize, whatever those things are, they are going to continue to happen. And so is it, you get the question, the age old question, is it the right time to buy? Is it the right time to sell? It always is.
Yeah.
It really depends on what's your motivation
for you. Yeah. And I mean, I say this too, like, for the average person, like, if you're not like BlackRock or Vanguard, or it's so hard for you to time the market, like, you're going to go crazy timing the market. And I mean, what if like someone would have wanted to time the market? Like, I have still people telling me like they had an opportunity to buy before COVID and they're like, I'm still waiting for the market to crash. I was like, yeah, but how's that working out for you? Right. I mean,
you don't want the market to crash.
That too, but
people who are stuck.
Like, they're waiting so long, right? And meanwhile, our property prices are up 30-40%. And you think, it's just
helping people understand, like, we still do have people out there who are hoping that interest rates will come down as far as they did during that unicorn year, right? 2-3%. And I find myself in conversations telling people, remember what it was like when that was the case. The worldwide economy was so jacked up, and we were coming out of a pandemic. Like, there were multiple things that ended up, regardless of what your political position is or your financial outlook is, the reality is that percentage rate drop was caused by some other things. And so for that to happen, do we want those other things to happen again?
Yeah.
No, don't want that, right? No, thank you. But look at people who were waiting a year ago to say, I'm going to wait a year and see if the interest rates have come down. And back then the interest rates were 7 and 8. Well, now they're at 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Everything that comes down must go up, and vice versa. So you kind of have to decide what, I mean, there's so many other options. It's not always about the interest rate. I mean, you could get FHA and VA loans are assumable. And that's a conversation I have with buyers now too. It's if you're so stuck on the interest rate, if you happen to be a VA buyer, or if the homeowner has an FHA loan on it, if we find out that it's assumable, that's another route to go, that you could assume that mortgage at that percentage rate. And that's the route for you to go. Like, there's still so many avenues that are available. People get stuck on one thing, and our job as agents, right, Kevin, is to ensure that we educate you on the fact that stop listening to the news, stop listening to the neighbor and your Uncle Joe, that this and that, talk to the real estate professionals, because there are options for different people.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, I'm sure, and then I want to ask you like very specifically about your first-time home buyers, but I'm sure you have that too. That's a good point, because especially working with first-time home buyers, obviously most of the time they're going to be younger. Like, then they listen to mom that bought a house in Tampa, like in your market as an example. She bought a house in Tampa 15 years ago with a pool for like 250,000, right? And then like obviously it's a totally different, right? Just like the
Had
mom
to put down 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that a lot. They're like, well, I have to save up 20%. No, who told you that?
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's just like, obviously you can't really compare 15 years ago to today. Of course, like every parent in the world right now is going to say, well, that's too much for this house. And it's like, I get it. Like, for in relation to what you bought your home for 15 years ago, yes. But what if you sell your home today?
I was gonna say, what if you that and say, but do you want to sell your home for the same price that you bought
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, how much equity are you sitting on? Like, I get, like, obviously your first home was a lot cheaper than what this first time home buyer is buying for today, but so was your parents' home. I mean, you could, what, in the 80s you were buying homes for 70 grand, and then when Cape Coral like started, I mean, there's newspaper ads for like $5,000 you could buy a home like in the 60s. So yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, just let professionals, let the
people with this is what, and it's not even opinion, right? I try to show graphs, and I try to show the data in a way that's very visual to show you people, when you get that prices are so high right now. And I sit there and I go, but you realize, did you know that prices are selling for less than what they originally listed for? And people look at you and go, really? And I go, yes. Don't look at the price. I don't even, if you tell me that your max budget or your pre-approval is for 400,000, I promise you, I'm looking at the houses that are 410, 415, 420. Why? Because I know that there are seller concessions. I know that there are there's a area of negotiation in there that we can leverage.
100%. So what I wanted to ask, so you work with a lot of first-time home buyers, a lot of renters, a lot of first-time home buyers. What do you do to help them like navigate this craziness that is Southwest Florida real estate, and type is very competitive?
Yes, it is. It is very competitive. I think it really starts, honestly, it starts with my buyer consultation. I try to really sit down, take the time to have a conversation about what is motivating you to purchase. What does your day-to-day look like? What is that life in that first home? What does that look like, right? Literally envision yourself. What are the things that are important to you? When you tell me we need a yard, I want a yard. My question to you is why? What's important about a yard, right?
Yeah.
If you tell me we want a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, and I'm looking at you and you're telling me it's just you, your husband, and your son, my question is, why do we need 4 bedrooms? Like, why is that important? Oh, well, sometimes I work from home, I work hybrid, or I want an extra space because my mom comes in for the summers. And like getting those details to understand what your day-to-day life looks like, to make sure that I would rather ask you, this is what we say, I would rather ask you 200 questions and show you 6 to 8 homes and we find the home that's right, rather than I'm only asking you 6 to 8 questions and I'm showing you 200 homes. Really kind of honing in on the specific details to that family so that we make the search intentional and very efficient, because in this market, in any market, you can easily get distracted and start looking at properties that don't check off the majority of your boxes, but oh, that master bedroom was huge. And I'm like, yeah, but it has a 1-car garage and has like 1.5 bath. So just kind of really keeping my buyers, keeping them focused and in line on what you said was important to you and not letting the distractions in. And that makes our process way more efficient and way more enjoyable, because then when we are going to look at homes, we're looking at things that match what you're looking for. I'm not the agent to take you house touring just for the sake of having something to do on a Saturday or a Sunday. There may be a week, depending on the inventory and how specific you want to be. I had a buyer one time who I met her at an open house. We ended up working together, but she wanted to be in a very specific community area of Tampa. And she had a very specific budget and wanted her daughter to be in this particular school zone. And so there were weekends where that was a highly sought after area. And so there were weekends where there wasn't nothing new had come on market. And I told her from the very beginning, I set that expectation about, I'm not going to take up your day taking you to go see homes just so that we feel like we're doing something. I want our time spent to be worthwhile for you. And so when I was able to kind of gear her towards a neighborhood, it's in the same area, but that area is broken up into 2 parts. And so it's the area of West Chase, but there's it's on the bottom side of West Chase, there's an area called Country Way, which still has all the great features about West Chase, but it's the first phase that was built out before the second phase, which is the more popular. And so I kind of geared her that way and said, look, we can find something more in your price point that still has all the same things you want. And so we were able to find something there. So it really starts with that, understanding the client, exactly what that family dynamic looks like, to make sure that we're being really intentional about what we're looking at. And then after that, it's really just a matter of making sure that I play the role of just kind of facilitating and making sure that everybody on the train is moving forward and all the pieces are moving right, and make sure that my clients understand, you're in a contract. And as much as this contract is here to protect you, the sellers are taking a risk. They are taking their house off market. Okay. So it's important that you be respectful of that as well. Respect the timelines. Make sure that, if there's anything that you should be asking for during a specific timeline, we're doing it in that timeline.
Yeah, because oftentimes you can't ask for certain things after that timeline. So.
Exactly. And so making sure that they know what's coming up next. Hey, this is the next step in the process. This is coming up next. You need to do this. And I think that is what really resonates with clients, buyers or sellers, is feeling like somebody is on top of it. Somebody is reaching out to all the players on the team. I'm very team oriented. So I tell my clients that all the time, like, our team is who we put together. So myself, your inspector, the title company, the lender, and my job is to keep in touch with all those people every week to make sure everybody is doing what needs to be done. And if there's a slowdown somewhere, what can I do to help move that along? Like, who do I need to call? Who do I need to reach out to? But just making them feel like somebody is on top of it, because they, as a buyer, they have a lot of other anxiety. They're trying to move.
They think, especially when you first go under contract, they think furniture shopping is important, but that election periods and finance and contingencies are way more important than them picking out a color for their new.
Do not do this while we're under contract, please.
Yeah. Oh, even better. Yeah. Furniture shopping on opening a new credit card while you're under contract on a house. Oh yeah.
Or even paying off a whole credit card.
Yeah.
Client this summer, they thought they were doing something good by paying off an entire credit card, and all of a sudden they were off on the credit score just took a
Yeah,
Not
because you close that
I
account.
to
Yeah.
change the formula, and I was like, oh no, you did.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, good points, good advice. And then we are in the home stretch of the year. Q4 is just upon us.
Yes, it is.
You're very goal oriented. You
I
said that in the beginning. You told me that offline as well. So I'm sure, and you don't have to give us as little or much as you would like personally. We don't have to get too personal, but what are some of your goals here for the end of the year, for the home stretch of the year?
So you mentioned Bold about KW has this huge once a year, very intense training that goes
Done
on.
it.
And so I did it last year and I signed myself up to do it this year. I'll be doing it next month to really keep the momentum going. And so that's one of my big things for really gaining a huge benefit out of my Bold experience this year, more so than last year.
Yep.
I'm on target, but I'm still making sure that I reach my big goal as far as closed units for the year. So if I can get in at least 3 more before December, I would be really excited. I've capped. That was a big goal. I've also been on top 20. So I'm hoping to be on top 20 again. I've been on it 3 times this year in the office, top 20 producing agents. And so my goal is to get there at least 1 more time before December.
Very cool.
But yeah, and I do plan on buying a piece of property before the year's out. That's my
Awesome.
goal.
Awesome. Maybe we can help you get there. So it's a perfect segue. Obviously, all your contact info or your social medias and how somebody can get in touch will be linked in the descriptions below. But if someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they reach you? Phone, email? What do you prefer?
All of that. So phone is a 404-788-7408. Yes, it is an Atlanta area code. I know it's not a Tampa area code, but I lived there for 20 years, so can't give it up yet. And then my email address is super simple. It's A.D. Rivera, and that's spelled river with an A at the end. I get a lot of Rivieras. A.D. Rivera at kw.com.
Perfect. Awesome. And you service buyers, sellers, investors, Tampa, broader Tampa area, right? That's
all of the above, all the Tampa Bay area, Hillsborough, Pasco, Hernando, Pinellas County. I will tell, and I've done a variety of different properties, which I love too. And one day we'll get into that. But I mean, everything from condos, townhomes, vacant land, mobile homes, single family homes, investment properties, all of it.
awesome.
I've got some great clients that I've worked with, and it's been great.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time. Appreciate you being very open. I always like when guests are open and don't just give us the easy answers. You really kind of opened up, which is hard to do on the internet.
What you see is what you get. I tell my clients that all the time.
I appreciate you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for all your valuable insights and for us to get to know you a little bit better. And we will be in touch. Thank you so much.
Sounds great. Make it a great day on purpose, Kevin.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I hope you enjoyed our discussions and gained valuable knowledge to enhance your home ownership journey here in Southwest Florida. A big thank you to our incredible guests and of course to you, our listeners, for joining us. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to connect, feel free to reach out. You can find us on Instagram at @KevinTremmel_real estate, on Facebook at Kevin Tremmel Real Estate, or visit our website, kevintremmel.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback is crucial and we're always eager to hear from you. Until next time, this is Kevin Tremmel, your host, signing off. See you on the next episode.